Hey there team, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to my overview of Burden of Command. So I've been playing this for a little bit in pre-release. I've put about 6 hours into it at time of this video. Like, not a full robust review, bit more than my usual shorter overviews, but enough to definitely get an idea of what this game is and what it's going for. Is it worth your time, worth your money? Okay, this is going to be really tricky to lay out clearly. I'll do my best, but know that the target audience for this is someone who has a very romantic view of the leadership of men, and maybe you watched Band of Brothers and you saw Captain Winners and you thought, oh golly gosh, what an absolute sterling cut of a hero, and what I want to be like him. And again, there's a sort of performative component to it. You kind of want to play the hero, and if you do find yourself in that sort of camp, you might enjoy this. The funny, almost ironic thing is that I kind of sit inside of what's going on here. I don't talk about it too often, but I've been doing this channel for years. Maybe people pick it up along the way, but I'm an ex-officer. I spent just under 10 years in the Australian Navy. I've been on the pointy end. I've seen some grisly stuff. I've had to deal with some pretty miserable things, right? Like I know leadership firsthand, but I don't really bang my drum because, who does? It's really had to do any of this stuff before. And for my own personal anecdotal, just self-insert meta moment, the thing about leadership is it's a job that needs to be done, and it's one of those things, I think it just comes naturally, right? You can teach someone the moving parts and the doctrine and all that sort of stuff, but some people just can't lead, and then there's just as many that shouldn't. Now, who's to say if I was ever a good leader personally? You'd have to ask the sailors that I knew, but look, I didn't get anyone killed, and in fact, in more than one occasion, I've saved lives. But that's as much as you'll get from me. And I guess my sort of being my bonnet with these sort of things is I have met firsthand people that have gone into the officer stream because they watched too much Master and Commander or Hornblower, because they were a performative person. They like the idea of looking the part as a leader, and I've seen them fuck things up so astronomically, it's wild. So I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer or anything like that. At the end of the day, it's a video game, it's fantasy, but like I said, it is this sort of romantic thing that I feel like the people that have been in these positions before in any way, or more appropriately, because there'd be more of them, soldiers that have sat under romantic leaders and suffered for it, probably won't enjoy this game that much. Anyway, look, so there's a little bit of feelings, right? And I know the developer is very involved in the community, and he loves messaging people and getting on YouTube comment sections and all that. He's probably not going to love that I'm giving this feedback, but it's honest, right? It's fair, and I'm not trying to be mean. He seems like a nice enough dude. Like, we had a back and forth bug fixing something while I was playing it, but know that in many ways this is kind of the marrying of a male romance novel of the battlefield and being a leadership on it, and what they kind of call an innovative, original hex grid based combat system, which I get it, they're doing some different stuff, it's ambitious, but it is ultimately a bit more just fiddly than fun. Anyway, that might seem like scathing criticism, but I'm just doing my best to use my words to accurately convey what's going on here and maybe some personal issues that I have with it. As far as all the sort of writing, the narrative, like, a lot of it is very performative, and it is kind of on rails. There is a narrative here. It does follow the Band of Brothers blueprint. You spend a long time in boot camp training up and learning the rules with referees and all this sort of stuff and going through, and I appreciate the appeal. People are going to like that for sure. It's quite novel, and then all of a sudden, off you go, you're on deployment, and I don't want to talk much more about that. There's no point in spoiling it. A lot of the narrative beats, the drama, it is manufactured. There are sort of signpost moments where ex-soldier's gonna die no matter what, right? And I understand that, but it does create kind of a divide between, like I said, the narrative kind of linear component with some performative choices and the actual moment-to-moment gameplay. When I say performative choices, like an example would be a lot of your stat line stuff is things like, well, verbosity is an example, right? How many big $5 more gooder words you use, right? And there'll be a choice where maybe you have to back brief the boys, right? Maybe you've got yourself a fire team, you've got commands from your captain above you because you're just a little junior lieutenant, though you still managed XP and that across the entire company. And it'll give you, choice 1, 2, and 3, how you can explain to them how we're going to take this hill or something. And it'll come down to -1 to verbosity, 0 or +1. So you see what I mean? It's about the image that your dude kind of cuts in the mirror more than anything. There's this kind of circle discipline tree thing, then the game will explain it all. But again, ultimately, it's all fairly low impact from a gameplay perspective. You might get some bonuses here and there as you unlock certain disciplines, but a lot of it is, how direct is your dude when dealing with other officers, again, and to kind of put a bow on it, fairly performative stuff. And then there's the turn-based combat, and that's the thing, I can see and appreciate that there's enthusiasm behind it, but I've seen stuff like this before come out of indie devs, like the Falconeer Chronicles Bulwark or something like that. I think they changed the name of it, I was looking it up the other day. Had a really unusual sort of circular thumbstick-centric control system, and it was ambitious and interesting and kind of crap because it didn't really add much other than being complex for the sake of being complex. So something similar is going on here. You've got, if you want to just take your one little section, for example, that your dude is an officer of, and you've got like 3 fire teams, it all varies as you go along. And then you'll have other subsections that, sister sections that you'll control with the other officers. But in order to move a rifle team, you have to activate it. And to do that, you have to turn it on with your officer, and then they move around, and you can embed him into the team and he can sort of razz them up, rally them, and bolster them. And it has a big focus on that it's not really about winning gunfights, it's about suppressing people to the point where you will finally close action assault them and force a surrender or, bayonet charge, that sort of thing. So it becomes kind of fiddly maneuvering your officer around to bunny hop between fire teams to make sure he's on the right one that's going to fire that turn, that's going to try and get suppression down and then try and force a charge. And like I said, it's not egregiously bad. There's nothing really wrong with it. And, to a point, I enjoyed the novelty of it. But again, I look at things like Zephon and that Gladius. Maybe I'm just a simpler creature, but to me, that's grid-based combat done perfectly well, fast and punchy. Whereas this sort of turns into a little bit of a slog because of the mechanics being a bit of oh my god, I don't mean to pun, but a burden in and of themselves. Anyway, look, I appreciate that this is a passion project and a lot of work went into it, and because it's dealing with this sort of somber chunk of history, they've got little vignettes out of war museums and voiceovers, and that's just snipped away from different exhibits. Like, it's cool, there's work that's gone into it, and I would probably argue my favorite part of it is that they've got little insert snippets of documents and posters of the era, that sort of thing, But that's a bit of my old man starting to show through and enjoying the more history museum aspect of games. We've talked about this with, the old Assassin's Creed games. But look, my real main takeaway is just go into this knowing what it is. It's a visual novel with an unusual fire and movement system, and if you keep your expectations relatively tempered, I think you can have a really good time with this. And I'll sort of close out with this thought, because during it's not even the early stages, it actually goes for quite a while, but the developer will self-insert a bit in a meta fourth wall breaking, hey, I'm the developer, I'm your chum, here's a recorded voice video of how to play this game and that sort of stuff. And I think that's actually really clever and interesting, and it is endearing to a point, but it really outstays its welcome, and it keeps going and going, and it gets to the Family Guy meme that this game kind of insists upon itself. There's something cool here, there's some clever stuff going on here, but I feel like, and this is the most scathing I'll be, and it's not supposed to be mean or personal or anything like that, but I feel like the dev thinks that they have something much more magical here than what it actually is in practice. Anyway, if you've made it this far, you may well be someone that's been following this thing's development. It's been in development since I started my channel. It's been around forever. You've probably seen the dev all over every video and pumping it up on Twitter and all that, which is fine. That's his prerogative. I appreciate that he's been this enthusiastic for this long. And then on top of it, these tutorial videos that sort of go on and on and on and really do over-explain something that, you know, you kind of get in the first 5 minutes. I feel like if you're part of that core audience that's really excited for this game because of that hype machine he's built around it, just be careful you don't overhype yourself. It's a good game. It's a fine game. Just know what you're getting yourself into. Anyway, team, I'll just leave it there for the time being, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.